Okay, so today we're flipping the script. Usually I'm sitting in that seat and I'm asking the questions, but this time I'm in the hot seat. My assistant Nonzo is going to be asking the questions, and we're going to cover the things you actually want to know. And before we get into it, fair warning, I'm going to share details that I've never heard other shows talk about. For example, how much money this show actually makes, how I land guests, and what I've learned from interviewing over 150 millionaires. Also, the unconventional method I used to get my first big time sponsor. And then finally, how you can start building your own podcast, even if you're starting from zero. And when I say zero, I mean absolute zero. I started this show with zero budget, zero subscribers on YouTube, zero famous connections, and we're on course to make multiple six figures this year alone. And so this is the video that I wish my favorite podcaster had created 3 years ago when I started this show. And one more thing before we get into it. I'm also going to share all of the non-financial reasons you should start a podcast. Basically, even if you never make a single cent from your show, it will be one of the best things that you did, and you'll be so grateful you took the leap. So you know what? Let's just get into it. You're listening to The Callum Johnson Show. One of the questions that we get the most often is, how do we land guests? Especially in the beginning, people want to know. I can actually just give you guys the templates, like the exact email templates that I use to land the first 10 guests on the show. We're going to put a link in the description so that you guys can download the PDF, which has the exact templates, and you can start using that to book guests for your show. Okay, so I'm going to start by rewinding for just a second. I started this show 3.5 years ago. The first episode was literally filmed in my younger sister's bedroom in my mum's house. I was recording the audio on a $70 microphone that I bought off Amazon. We were using a $15 a month Riverside FM subscription. I say we, there was no we, it was just me, and we were recording it on my grainy Mac webcam. That's how it started. And honestly, that's what the first 30 episodes looked like. At the time, I was 23 years old. I was working a full-time job in marketing. And I remember feeling so powerless and frustrated in my job. Like I was just this cog in the machine, turning up to work each day, hoping that I might get a promotion. And I remember one day getting on the phone with my career coach and just saying to her, I want to build a brand where unique opportunities come to me. This is the point in time where personal branding and marketing was like all of the jazz. You were hearing it everywhere. And so to me, it was this moment of frustration of like, I just want life to be different. I remember she stopped and she just said to me, this is in the beginning of 2022. Why don't you record 10 episodes of a podcast? And at that point in time, I had never been on camera. I knew nothing about business or media. It's funny actually now because people will ask me if I have a background in journalism. The answer is no. I was so skeptical and afraid of putting myself out there in the beginning, but she just said to me, just record 10 episodes of a podcast. You don't even have to release the episodes, just record it. That one line from her completely changed my life. And before we go any further, if you take just one lesson from this video, one thing, make sure it's this. Start looking at your life as a series of experiments. It's funny because I recently heard Ben Francis, the founder of Gymshark, talk about this. Gymshark is $1 billion plus clothing brand. And he said, we get so used nowadays to people setting these huge goals, these really ambitious expectations for their lives and what they're going to build. They say things like, I'm going to build a 100-year brand or a 9-figure business. They set the bar so high and it stops them from ever taking a leap or making any sort of risky bet. He does the exact opposite. He sets the bar so astoundingly low for himself. He's so unambitious that it makes it easy for him to get started, and then he just keeps building incrementally from there. That's what I did. I set the bar so low that all I had to do was record 10 episodes, not release 10, not get 1,000 listeners, not go viral, just record 10 episodes. And that's how this show started. And so I'll share more later on about what were the most effective tactics that we used to grow and monetize along the way. But that one experiment, that one commitment that I made on that call with my career coach changed everything. And so before we go any further, I'm going to share some numbers with you guys. These are the numbers that no podcast ever wants to share. So let me just... Okay, so first of all, we're on track to make just over $292,000 this year alone. The show has accumulated over 11.5 million downloads. It's also done over 2.2 million hours of watch time. To put that into perspective, that is 250 years of human watch time spent seeing the show. And also, if you think about where I started, feeling frustrated and like just powerless in my role at work, I now work on this show full time and have a team of 6 that work on the show. And it all started as one experiment. And so what we're going to do now is I'm going to have one of those team members, my assistant Nonzo, is going to come on camera and she's going to ask me some questions and we're going to unpack all of this for you guys. Welcome, Nonzo. So yeah, let's get straight into it.
If you had to boil it down, what were the tactics that actually made this show grow?
Okay, cool. So we always get this question. There's different levels to it and different points. I'm actually going to be looking down at my phone periodically to make sure I get everything for you guys. But first, the context is like the first 20 months of doing the show. So about the 2-year mark of doing the show, we got 30,000 downloads total. So that was every episode we put out accumulated to 30,000 downloads. At the time, that was crazy for me. I was like, 30,000 people watch this thing? That's crazy. The next 2 years, so in the next just under 2 years, like 20 months, the show has gotten over 10 million downloads. So it like exploded in a huge way. And so there were a few things that we did that led to that shift. I think the biggest thing, and this is what I tell people, like a lot of the success that we've had is owed to this, is I made a decision that we were going to go all in on YouTube. So before we were just posting on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and honestly, the discovery for new shows on those platforms is horrific. It's terrible. Like no one discovers new podcasts organically on those platforms, really. Once we made that shift to YouTube, everything changed. And we started getting picked up in the algorithm. All of those things happened. But it wasn't immediately. In fact, like the first 20, 30 episodes that we did on YouTube performed exactly in the same way as the episodes we would put on just Spotify or Apple Podcast. YouTube is different than other social media platforms. People have to make the choice to click on your videos. If you go on like Instagram or TikTok, as soon as you open the app, the algorithm is already feeding you content. Like the reels are already playing, you're already seeing your friends' photos, like everything is just given to you. YouTube is a permission-based platform. So people actually have to click, which means that you could create the greatest video ever. If no one is going to click on your video, it won't perform. And so one of the shifts that we did is we just started putting a lot more time into the packaging of the show. I used to think about thumbnail. For context, when I say packaging, that means thumbnail and title on YouTube. And so I used to think about those elements as like an afterthought. Honestly, like we would do the full video and then like at the last second, I'd be like, oh, I need a title or we need a thumbnail. And we just like whip something up quickly and put it out. We reverse the process. If people actually want to know the secret, even before the episode is recorded, we have a pretty good idea of what the title will be. And then we spend hours and hours coming up with that and testing and like data and like experimenting to see what the right title is. Actually just getting your packaging right and figuring out how to frame things so that people want to click or people want to buy will completely change your business or your content. And we don't think about it. And so that was my story in a lot of ways. Is like the first 2 years, I didn't think about packaging at all. At that 2 year mark, we started thinking about packaging. The show started blowing up very quickly after that. I would say around that kind of 2 year mark, I just got really obsessed about the quality of the show and the viewer. And so what I mean is, and my team will know this because I literally I'm like a broken record. I say the same thing over and over again, which is whenever we're talking about an episode, it starts with the viewer avatar. Like, who is the human being? Who is the unique human being that is meant to watch this show? And if we cannot come up with a unique human being that is meant to watch, it probably just means we shouldn't be producing it. And so I tell people, like, this goes deep to the point where we have booked a guest, like someone who is incredibly successful and great at what they do. We've gone through all of the steps. We've paid thousands of dollars on production and team cost and travel and all of this stuff. We've recorded the episode, and then I've watched back the episode and just not released it because I didn't think that it served the viewer avatar that we set out to serve. And we've done that multiple times. And it's painful. Like, there's multiple episodes on the cutting room floor, but it goes back to that principle of the viewer avatar being customer obsessed, or not customer, but viewer obsessed, and keeping that bar of quality really high. And so I think that that's just served us, and the show's grown exponentially as a result. There's one thing which I think is really underrated. I actually made this mistake. I hear other people make it, which is when I was in this point in time where we were posting episodes every week, the show would not take off. Like, we were stuck at 100 views a week, 100 downloads per episode routinely. And so one of the things I remember just hearing it was like, you have to go big on the short form clips and reels. And so I remember at the time, I set myself this challenge of for 90 straight days, we were going to put a reel on Instagram every single day. Over that period of time, several of those reels actually did go viral. Like, they got millions of views, and like the page got followers, and I would see no movement on the actual numbers, like the underlying numbers of the show. And so one of the myths, and I say myth intentionally because I think it is a myth, is that early on, you want your show to be everywhere. I don't actually think that's the way to go about it. Or at least in my experience, what worked for us is we made a commitment to being the best YouTube interview show. And like studying the YouTube algorithm, it was funny, I was joking about this with my editor yesterday. We would get on these 2-3 hour calls where like we'd put an episode on YouTube and we would sit there and like analyze the performance. And then we would go on other shows that were like 100 times more popular, and we would look at the thumbnail, we would look at the title, we would look at the intro that they used in the beginning. We would study all of these elements of what made the show successful at YouTube. And in the beginning, we sucked. We were terrible. Like, we had no idea what we were doing. But we would analyze, we would watch interviews. Even one of the things I'll give is Colin and Samir. I used to watch their show so much to understand what was working for creators. And so over time, we just figured out kind of like the YouTube game and the YouTube algorithm to the point that once it clicked, and this is what I tell people, it's like once it clicked, we went from getting 100 views on an episode to the first episode that went viral has been watched over 900,000 times. And so the delta or the magnitude of difference from like not understanding YouTube and packaging to understanding YouTube and packaging, it's not like a 2x or a 3x difference. It's like 100,000 million times the result. And that was because we stopped posting everywhere and we focused all of our energy on one platform. Now, the caveat that I'll say, if you're rich or famous and you have like hundreds of thousands of dollars to pour into media and production teams and editors, then maybe the strategy of going everywhere can work for you. But if you're just a normal guy like myself and you don't have a huge budget, Focus on one platform that you love. And this even just works in personal branding as well. Focus on one platform that you love showing up for and communicating on. Put all of your energy and time into mastering that platform and understanding the dynamics. You will blow up 100 times quicker doing it that way versus giving 10% to 10 different platforms. So yeah, that's the other little thing that I think is important.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so you said the show is on track to make just under $300,000 this year alone. Can you break that down, and what has been the biggest drivers for your revenue growth?
Yeah. Okay, so we're getting a bit juicy now. So we're on track to do just under 300,000. I think it's $292,000 is what we're on track to do by the end of this year. And to go a bit deeper into that stat, 60% of that revenue comes from brand sponsors. So our partners on the show, we do ad reads, we have sponsors. The other 40% is a mixture of AdSense from YouTube. So YouTube directly paying us on the views that we get on episodes. And then also like the merchandise. So you guys have seen like the Stay Delusional t-shirts or, shameless plug, the notebook or the caps that we have on the website. So it's been there's like a mix that goes into that. But the majority of that comes from brand sponsors. And so one of the questions that I get from people who are getting into content creation is, how did we land sponsors? Like, how did we get sponsors? And there's this kind of myth that when you start getting views and you get like a level of popularity as a show, that sponsors are just flooding your inbox and they're hitting you up and they want to be in the program. That was not our experience, even a little bit. Like that's what I was expecting. Like I was sitting at home in my inbox, and I remember we even put it like in the contact section in YouTube, and we had a few episodes that popped off, and it'd been like a couple of months. Like we'd been doing well for like a little bit of time, and I was like, okay, cool. Like where the sponsors at? It was crickets in my inbox, and it was funny because I remember at the time, this is about a year ago. I watched this video that Stephen Bartlett did, this clip that he had. Stephen Bartlett obviously does the Diary of a CEO, a huge show. And he was talking about how he got his first sponsors. And he tells this story of like, he only wanted to work with brands that were like mission aligned, that he loved the product. And I was exactly the same. I was like, I only want to work with brands that I personally use them, I feel good about. I don't just want to give anything to my audience. And so he explains that he came up with this, it's like this step-by-step method to get your first sponsors. He says that he wrote down 5 companies that he would love to sponsor the show. He then created this 3-slide pitch deck explaining like the numbers of the show and like why they should come on and where the show was going to go, and they're going to be the biggest podcast in Europe and then the world and all of these things. He then reached out to the CEOs of those companies with the pitch deck, and they responded. And then they pretty quickly like agreed terms on like these long-term sponsorship deals, these 12-month contracts. And I remember listening to it and I'm like, okay, like that sounds easy. Like I think we can do that. And so I did exactly the same thing. Like step by step, I did the same thing. And we reached out to brands. I think we reached out to Huel, we reached out to Gymshark, Notion. There was like so many different companies I had on this list. And I remember we sent out the emails, and I'm sitting there patiently again, like waiting by my inbox. Crickets again, like no one responded. It's kind of like a recurring theme. And so I remember we just had this idea one day. I was speaking with one of my editors, and we had this idea because we were just like frustrated, and we just, like we just want to make this happen. And so what we decided, we had this episode we were super excited about, and I wrote a script for a brand. It was Huel, actually. At the time I was like drinking their drinks and like using their supplements. I was like the perfect time. And I write this script, this really personalized script. We record the script, we put it in the episode as if they're a sponsor. They're not a sponsor. We just do this for free. We just put it in the episode. And I remember at the end of the ad read, I just said, I speak directly to the camera like I'm doing now. And I just said to the audience, I was like, this is actually not sponsored by Huel, but I hope that it is. And so if you guys just comment Huel in the comment section below, maybe they'll give us an ad deal. And I said it exactly like that. And so many people, thank you to you guys, so many people commented Huel in the comment section that I remember a few days later, we got an email from Huel and they sponsored the show. And like that was our first big name sponsor. And then pretty quickly after that, it was a lot easier to get other sponsors on board. But yeah, we just got like really creative, honestly, and it worked out. Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool. Looking back, what's one thing you do completely differently if you had to start all over again?
Yes, 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 yes. You know, it's kind of, it's like hard to come up with one thing. If I was going to say like things that I've learned is only create content that you can make. I remember actually about 18 months into the journey hearing that from Alex Hormozy. It was just this clip. It didn't even have many views. I just remember it popped up. I saw it on YouTube Shorts, and it was this clip where he says, "We only create content that we can make." And so what that means in terms of like a podcast and an interview show is that there are certain guests, either because you just love what they do, or like their story very closely resembles your own, you just resonate with them. Like you were meant to record with those people. Then there's other guests, typically, and this is what I call like the famous guests or like the big time guests, where you've just seen them on other shows. And so you want them on your show. But there's not actually like a specific reason why you should have the conversation. And so one of the things that I've learned is I think that the famous guest or the big name guest, getting them on the show solely for the reason that they're famous doesn't work. Like, I don't think that that's the right way to do things. And I've tried going that route. And typically those episodes have actually underperformed some of the other episodes we've done with people that no one knew before they clicked on the episode. And then after we did the episode, hundreds of thousands of new people knew them. So that's what I would say is the biggest thing is record with people that like you're genuinely excited to do that episode, or you're genuinely excited to record on that topic. It's not because you think it's going to go viral or that they're famous. That would be one of the harsh lessons that I've learned and honestly continue to learn.
Final question. If your show never blew up, you had no views, no sponsors, would it still be worth it?
Yes, 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 yes. Okay. So this was a big thing for me. I wanted to make sure that we got this in there because it's nice to talk about like revenue numbers or like put numbers on the board or like sponsors that we've worked with, all of those things. But there are so many reasons to do a podcast outside of like fame, like followers, or getting money from it. Okay, so I'm going to break down the biggest three that I found. First of all, podcasting is the ultimate networking hack. And here's what I mean. I remember vividly, like early on in my career, trying to reach out to people that were like, they were senior at companies. Like I worked in consulting. So like I'd reach out to partners at company, like big consulting companies or like CEOs I just wanted to learn from. And I would send them cold emails or cold DMs on LinkedIn asking for a coffee, or what's the thing that people always say? Asking to pick their brain. Like I did all the things that like you shouldn't do that. And I would get no response. And I remember very early on, literally from that point that I made the decision to do the experiment, I would reach out to these same people or entrepreneurs, like very busy people, but I would invite them to come on a podcast rather than get a coffee. And I'd be shocked because they would actually agree. It's just, I don't know what it is on like a psychological human level, but people like talking about themselves. They like talking about themselves and their story and their success on camera. And so just that tweak, of instead of asking someone to go for a coffee or get on a Zoom with you for 20 minutes, just recording it and being a podcast, they are 100 times more likely to say yes. And so you will start to develop this incredible network just from having an interview show. So off the bat, that's not even releasing any episodes. That's just recording and reaching out to people. You will develop an incredible network. The second thing, and I think that this one is really underrated and maybe actually the most powerful thing, especially if you're someone that, like, similar to me, your ambition is to start a company, be an entrepreneur, or build a business. If you interview and spend time with entrepreneurs, you will get secret nuggets of information that will lead you to launching your first business. And here's what I mean, just as an examples. A few weeks ago, we recorded an episode with Dan Martell. Dan Martell, really successful entrepreneur, has like built and sold 3 companies. Right now is running like $100 million holding company. They invest in AI businesses. One of the things that I asked Dan is, like, you've invested millions and millions of dollars in AI. What is the cutting edge opportunity that anyone could action on right now and build like a multi-million-dollar AI business? I get to ask him that question. He responds to me in that moment. He says, the thing that people aren't paying enough attention to, but is like huge right now, is AI automation. So you reach out to small, medium-sized companies, you take basic operations that they have, like customer support, and you use AI agents to fulfill that service at like a fraction of the cost. Now, I don't know about you. I don't hear that information on the internet, but he broke it down step by step on the show. And so even if no one had watched that episode, he literally gave me a business model that I could have actioned on in that moment. And so filming the show and just walking around and living my daily life, people are always asking me like what business ideas or what they should start or like what's going to be their thing. When you do an interview show or when you do a podcast, you get to ask people that are making money and living at the cutting edge what they would do, and they give you the answers in that moment. And so it's like an accelerated way. It's like a hack of how to get your first business idea that could take off. And then you also have the network and someone that can help you build that business. So I'd say that might be the most valuable thing. And that's if you don't make a single dollar off the show the show itself. The third thing that I would just add on is I feel, and it's funny because we were actually talking about this off camera, I feel like very comfortable now on camera. Like I can speak basically the way that I speak outside of recording. It was not like this at all in the beginning. Like I hated the sound of my own voice. It's funny because we were joking about that. You were saying the same thing to me. I did not speak this fluently or like in the cadence that I do. And so just making that commitment to record this show every single week for the last 3 years, I cannot emphasize enough how much you improve as like a speaker, how much your confidence improves. And honestly, learning how to interview people, it's actually just great in your daily life. Just the social interactions, your charisma, sales, even like dating, anything human communication, like connecting with other humans, you will improve that skill, that like core human skill from having an interview show. So that would probably be the final thing. It's like, you will learn skills that if you apply them to your 9 to 5 or in your social life or in your dating life, like whatever the thing is, it will be valuable. And it starts with the podcast. So that would be the final thing that I would say has been huge for me. Okay, so before I get out of here, if you guys enjoyed this and you want to see more solo episodes, maybe we'll bring Nonzo back if I could convince her to do that. And you want to see more of these kind of more personal, intimate, behind the scenes sort of episodes, give us a thumbs up, like the video, and we will put this as like a more regular thing that we do and answer some of your guys' questions. And also another thing, let me know what you guys are interested in. The actual we ran a poll um before I recorded this, and the topic of like how much money this show makes and how we built it to this point uh got the most upvotes. Like it was the most popular thing that people wanted to know about. So that's why we recorded. So we really want to hear from you guys. But yeah, without further ado, we're gonna get out of here. Peace.